Alrighty, so we are now at your first code along assignment. And so there's a part one and a part two because there's several videos in this series. I've broken it into two parts. And if you want to check it out, where we're at is in section 3 of the Udemy course, and we're doing 9 through 14. Okay, so what I provide in Canvas, if you click into this item, which you'll get after you do the attendance, there's a couple of things. The video I'm now recording, and then here's a link to detail on how and what you need to do for each item. Okay, and this is what's called a markdown file. And it's just basically a document showing you what you need to do, right? So code along, modern boots camp, modern JavaScript boot camp. On the first video, you just watch it. Okay, there's really nothing you to do, just watch it. Now on the second video, which is video 10, now we're actually going to create a new file in your basic folder. Here's what to name it, which by the way, this is what Andrew Mead will name it when you're watching it. The difference is, once you need to run code, right? Because he shows running it on with Node, which is server side, which I talked about in this week's attendance, and I've shown students how to not to kind of get around or just to get to the browser sooner, right? So just to show you this, because I'm going to actually open up my VS Code because I've already completed this work. Here's all the files you created. As a matter of fact, notice the other thing I did here is I provided you a list of what the files, the folder location. Notice, the case I'm using here. And I do this to give you the example. This is the index file we created before. So now when you're doing that first item, I showed you before, and I'll go ahead and open up the index file, right? And I showed you how to run the live server, right? Oh, I must be running it somewhere else. Or, as a matter of fact, let me just go ahead and close it, right? This is where I showed you how before, but I'm also going to show you how I run it. Okay, because I don't run the extension, I run live server, but it doesn't really matter how you run it. But let's say as you're coding along with this first item, right? And this is where I'm talking about once you're ready to run, then open your index file and change the source attribute to be strings.js. So this is where your editor really makes your life easier, right? If I just come in here, and because I'm already in the basics folder, there's the strings file, right? If I just type S, because there's no other S files that start with S, and I hit tab, that automatically not automatically, it just auto fills that into this file. And again, because I have autosave set up, it automatically saves that change for me. Okay. And now what I would do, because again, you could use this, but you would use go live once you have the index file up, I believe. But what I do is I'm going to back up, cd back period, cd space period does, it takes you back a directory, which in this case ls is the directory that has the index that I want. And then I would just run, live server, right? Okay, so now here's my live server running. I hit inspect. I go over. There is definitely some stuff setting here. Now the console for me, the way I have set it up is here on the bottom, but you do also have a tab with the console itself. Now what I'm going to do is actually just refresh real quick. Here's the output. And the rest of the stuff, and I wish they wouldn't include it, but they do because of the way what live server runs. So you just get used to kind of just seeing the parts of it that you want, which in this case is the output of the last challenge, okay, for this code. But first I want you to know that. So in my write-up, when I talk about that, I just want you to see another example of doing that. And then you might have noticed too, and it is really good to read my notes here because I've gone through it and I've given you notes for things that I want you to know about, right? So and it's about why name, when you actually write the next part of the code after the beginning, there's actually a line through it, which means it's deprecated. Okay, and I wanted you to know why. So now, and also when he says comment out, or when he says delete code, I want you to comment it out. So let me show you what I mean by that. So in a JS file, and let me just open strings, right? So what you can do here, and there's an edit, which you can do block or line. I typically like line, and notice there's a keyboard shortcut, which I definitely recommend using. So if I wanted to uncomment something, I could select the lines, and if I wanted to comment it back. So when Andrew says delete it, I don't want you to delete it. I want you to comment it out and then write the next part of the code. Okay. So in this case, there's no, besides code, just coding along, right? There's no commit on this first one. There's just some writing, and talking about semicolons and, not, they're optional. So I'm sorry. Oh, there is. So my bad. There is a coding challenge here, right? So in this section, there is a coding challenge. So when he gets to the place where he describes what you need to do the coding challenge, right? Understand it and then stop the video and write the code. Okay. So write the code to do that challenge. This is your challenge attempt code. And then before you watch the solution, I want you to commit your code, right? So this is that workflow that we learned in week 0. So let me just kind of go over it with you a little bit here. Now, in this case, I'm running live server in this particular terminal. So I could either click over to a bash, which is just takes me to the command line and allows me to do it, or I could open up another one, open up another bash session to do it. Remember, I showed you how to open an integrated terminal, and you may get these stacked up. So if you're no longer using them, you can get rid of them. Now, the reason I opened this, I went to the files in this basic directory was so that I can do git status right now. I think I probably have one file I didn't. You will, as you write these files, write this code, create these files, see them. So we know git add star, right? Git, am I right? Let me just increase this text a little bit. Git commit dash m. And this is where you want to use the message I gave you, video, in this case 10, my code. Okay, so what this is going to allow me to do is see the code that you've written for the challenge, right? Oh, what did I do? Oh. Oh, yeah, because I've already done all my commits. Okay, so I'm like, what? Oh, actually, no. Sorry. What I did here is I put equal, and it's supposed to be a dash. There we go. Okay, but in this case, there's nothing to commit, but you will have things to commit. So this is what I'm saying right here, right? So make sure you do this step, you commit your code, and then once you've committed it, you don't have to do the last step, but you can. But the git push actually moves your code. It places your code, it takes what you've updated for committed and pushes it to GitHub so that you can turn it in and so that it's out on GitHub, it's out on the website. Okay. So again, you could work through all of this and then do the push at the end. Right. And then I just gave you a heads up about some of the stuff here. What I found out, especially for those of you running in the browser, that the location that he says create, in this case, when you're running in the browser, you can't. And I gave you a link to the Udemy course that has a great Q&A for that. Okay. So you get through all this, you do this, you can actually count up how many commits you should have. So we have one for 10, right? Let me see. Let me just back up and slow down here. Yeah, so we have one for 10. So video 10 my code, video 11 my code, and then video 12 doesn't have a challenge, it's just code. And then video 13 has a challenge, right? So it'd be my code. And section video 14 has a challenge as well. And then I have a suggestion at the end about actually taking the next step and come up with some concepts to help you really drill these concepts, especially the Boolean concepts here on the end as well. But all of it, because you can gain just another significant level of knowledge by doing more, coming up with more. And you could even ask for help out on Discord to actually come up with things to code for that. Okay, so now that we're here, we're actually, I've done this already, but for you, you would submit the assignment. And now here's what I want to show you. When you're, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to open up GitHub. I'm going to go to CIT93. I'm going to go to my repo, my private one, because, and if I didn't say this, these are all done in your private repo under that JS um, boot camp, right? And in this case, basics. But here's what I want to show you. So I counted up the number of commits. I just have to tell you, my commits are not going to be that, but I just want to show you when you click on commits, you should see all those commits that I listed in that file. And then if you come up here, it doesn't increase this, and grab this URL, okay, this is what you're going to submit here. Okay, so what I grade you on is how well did you follow my instructions, right? Did you, I looked at your code. Did you actually, could I tell it was your code? Over time, in the beginning, this is a little harder because it's the challenges are a little more straightforward. But that's the kind of stuff I look at. Did you give me the right URL? Did you do all the commits? Are all the files there? Okay. Okay, so and then you can hit submit, and then I will grade it and check it out. Okay, so I hope this video gives you, a demonstration. Now, I will not do these videos in this depth going forward, but what I will do is when, that's why this README file is there for you to actually check out to give you some of the things that I find, because this semester, even though I've used this course before, I'm actually going through this to refresh myself and to remember some of the things that I saw in this course, and especially with the way I'm showing you how to run the code. Okay, so that's it. That gives you your first week, and then I am going to start working on week 2, or I may release this course so you have it. We'll see. Have a good one. Bye.